Just another cracking weekend of Super Rugby. I hope you agree. The fun factor is back big time. And how often do you hear that particular F word associated with rugby? Wales have lost 15 games in a row. That's as many as Richie McCaw did in his whole 148 test career for the All Blacks.
Yeah, he was playing for Wales, so that he got away with it. Look,
the last time that they beat the Brumbies in Canberra, baby Jesus was playing number 10, wasn't he?
He was, indeed. Yeah, they flew him in from Nazareth on a 3-3 game injury cover contract.
Welcome to the DSPN.
He's given him. Wow, there you go. He was forward.
Oh, a punch up now in midfield. Fraser's involved.
The Devlin Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome to the DSPN, people. Martin, Devlin, Lachlan Waugh, after another very full-on weekend of sport. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much for joining us. Please hit the subscribe button, like, share, follow. We do Comment Corner /Fan Forum, where we look at all of your comments every Friday on the show. Keep them coming on that. We want to get to 5,000 subscribers as quick as we possibly can, and you helping us really does help this side of the microphone, keeping us alive. If you're listening on Rover or wherever you find your favourite podcasts, thank you again for supporting us. We put out plenty of social media clips every day across Instagram, Facebook and TikTok. Martin Devlin _DSPN. Again, thank you. Big time rugby show today. Jamie Waugh with the New Zealand perspective, round 2, Super Rugby. Brett McKay giving us the Aussie eyeball. Chris Jones covering the Six Nations. We will tackle all the day's most major sports stories in the tight five, including the A-League derby Saturday. Both me and Lachlan were at Mount Smart for that. Liverpool have won the Premier League after beating City this morning, as good as. Joe Parker won't be fighting Usyk anytime soon. Why? We'll explain. And Supercars opening round. We begin the show the same way every day.
We live in an amazing, amazing world, and it's wasted on the crappiest generation of just spoiled idiots.
Just another cracking weekend of Super Rugby. I hope you agree. The fun factor is back big time. And how often do you hear that particular F word associated with rugby? F the rules, F the TMO, F it's a complicated, convoluted game. Yeah, we get a fair bit of that, and yes, all of that might be true. But right now, after 2 rounds, this comp is excellent. Averaging 75 points and more than 10 tries per match, which is more than most of us could drink beers while watching one. You do the math, about one every 5 or 6 minutes. End-to-end action, last-minute wins, huge upsets. It is as entertaining as it's ever been. And that's the key. Sure, there's about as much defence going on as you'd see in the NBA All-Stars game, but that will come as the teams improve and playoff positions become more the focus. The players themselves are going to raise that bar. Right now, though, it's all about the entertainment factor. Rugby, both here and in Oz, has had a couple of weeks' head start on the NRL and the AFL and needed to make an immediate impact, which it most definitely has done. There needed to be a similar excitement level to what we saw in the A-League derby here in Auckland on Saturday. 27,000 plus fans at Go Media Mount Smart. With those kind of crowds expected for AFC and the Warriors every week, it's vital that Super Rugby puts a product out there that people will always and also want to pay to watch. Best match over the weekend, the Highlanders tipping up the Blues. Who apart from your die-hard Blues heads didn't love a little bit of that? And this time all those loonies on the field at the end were invited, not trespassers. Another brilliant idea from that franchise to physically engage with their fan base, their customers. The message this year from Super Rugby bosses was exactly that. They said it's all about fan engagement. And the first and best way to achieve that is to do exactly what they're doing. Provide consistent, quality entertainment.
Devlin.
Super Rugby round 2, you know the results. Chiefs whacking the Crusaders on Friday night. Reds doing the same to MP. Canes just over the Drua. Highlanders, what a win that was against the Blues. And the Brumbies losing at home to the Force for the first time in about 10,000 days or something ridiculous like that. Jamie Waugh from RNZ joins us. And Jamie, we're not here to bang a drum and be promoters for the competition, but I agree with the article that you wrote on the weekend. Started the show off by saying exactly the same thing. Look, the first round was brilliant. The second round, equally brilliant. Couple of cracking rounds of Super Rugby. What else can you say?
Yeah, I mean, it really lived up to the hype. It had a hard act to follow after what was a really good weekend first time up. But I think that, if anything, it improved on it. And it's shown that not only are the teams willing to be playing an entertaining brand of rugby, but the officials are as well. And really, if you're not enjoying the product that Super Rugby's giving at the moment, then I think you probably need to ask yourself what sort of rugby fan you really are, because they can't really be doing much more to get more eyeballs on the screens at the moment. Just some really, really good stuff and some great storylines starting to emerge and some interesting narratives as well.
Okay, in terms of defence, if you are a purist, you're probably going to want a bit more of that. I mean, you contrast it, say, with some of what we're seeing in the Six Nations and the European Club Rugby, but I kind of feel that that'll come throughout the competition. For me, the big bit was about getting a break on both the NRL and the AFL. If you are, sitting there in rugby administrative shoes and you needed to put a product out, especially in Australia, that is going to be compelling, that's going to have exciting ends, it's going to have some drama, it's going to have some upsets. That's what you had to actually put out in front of the public. And so box ticked.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I don't know what more they can do. Just on the defence thing, though, we did see a Six Nations game this morning where I think just under 100 points was scored between France and, I guess it was Italy that they were playing. So, and we did have that first round game between the Blues and the Chiefs as well. That was very much kind of test match level scoreline about the way it unfolded. So I think it just kind of is who's matching up against who. But you're absolutely right. Like teams, we've got a lot of new players coming into systems now. Coaches trying to develop systems as well. And it'll come as we go on. I think we'll see the scorelines going down. But you talk about the Australian market as well. Well, you have two teams that normally New Zealand fans wouldn't really give much thought, the Brumbies and the Force, and they turned on arguably the most entertaining game of the weekend. So hopefully it's given Australian fans as well, because, like we talked about the other week, it's a massive time for Australian rugby right now, and it's up to these teams to leverage the amount of attention that the sport is going to be getting because of the Lions Tour and the World Cup coming up as well. So well done to them for playing their part.
Yeah, and just on that, I was going to start talking about the Chiefs, but we'll just park that for a second. Mike Cron's influence, when you're down to 13 and you're going to go for the scrum, that's big balls from that Brumbies side. We didn't actually see that from the Blues, who perhaps should have done that against the Highlanders.
Yeah, well, and the Brumbies actually had to push in their scrum too. So they were a little bit more innovative than what the Blues did. But it was a really good game, and I think but just because of the nature of the Force and that we don't really pay them much attention, it is worth noting that they have actually loaded up their squad quite a bit this year. They've got a Wallaby inside back combination now. They've added Darcy Swain into their locks and Dylan Peach out on the wing. They're all Wallabies that they've brought in. So it's not a massive surprise that they've got off to such a good start. I think they're sitting second on the table right now. I'm just hoping that people can sort of take notice of this so that when they do come over to New Zealand to play against New Zealand teams, it's like, this is going to be a bit of a shootout of a game. Hopefully they can get a reputation kind of like what the Draw have, that they lived up to in their game against Hurricanes and Napier.
Yeah, that you are going to get, a hell of a scoreline and, a lot of excitement action on the field. I'll ask Brett McKay all about that shortly. In terms of the best team in the competition, it's the Chiefs. Is there a really big gap now down to whoever is second?
It feels like it. We're only 2 weeks in, to be fair. I think that what the Chiefs have shown is that they have a lot of depth in their squad, and that Clayton McMillan is very keen to explore that depth, so that when he does get injured, not if, but when those injuries occur, he can call on guys who have already had starts, have already had good minutes at this level to jump in. So much so to the point that he's keeping All Blacks on the bench. And it's working, actually, because if it is part of a sort of wider plan, he's saying that it's just a way of rewarding his guys that have performed in pre-season. I think it's kind of a mix of sort of both technically and reward, because we saw Xavier Rowe and Simon Parker start ahead of Sonic Finau and Cortez Ratana. Both had really, really good, all four of those guys had really, really good games. So he's getting the most out of his squad, and I think that's kind of the difference right now. Again, 2 weeks, we've got a long way to go in this thing, but I think that's the difference between them and everyone else.
What did that result tell you about the Crusaders, though, who ended up getting swamped by 49 points at the end of that?
Yeah, I don't think it's as big a disaster as the scoreline might suggest. It's certainly not back to square one kind of thing for Rob Penny, because there was some good enough stuff. And there, I think Taha Kimura is looking like a really important part of that team, not just this season, but for the seasons going forward. It just kind of felt like the stuff that they did against the Hurricanes that worked really well just didn't quite come off in this game. And that if just with a few tweaks here and there, they are going to be back to the Crusaders that we all are familiar with, rather than the version we had last year.
So while you were watching the Hurricanes, Drew, I had to watch that later. I was actually at Mount Smart, part of 27,009 people that turned up to watch the A-League derby between AFC and the Knicks. And so the Hurricanes had taken their game on the road to Napier. So first and foremost, that doesn't happen that often these days. Afternoon rugby, taking it to another ground other than one of the big cities. Did that work?
Yeah, it did, because that was, I think it was sold out. I think it was about 30,000 and so that game in Napier. It's the first time the Hurricanes played in Napier for a while, if I got that right. And they delivered, because it was a really, really good game. It was it was looking like it was going to be a really bad afternoon for Wellington sports, because obviously the Phoenix couldn't get anything going against Auckland FC, and it was looking like the Hurricanes were in for a shock loss against a draw side that not only scored a whole bunch of good tries, they also butchered about 3 as well. And if they'd got a couple of those, then we might be having a different conversation. But I don't think you can take too much out of the game from a Hurricanes perspective, because the draw, who they are, you're going to be in for like a wild, crazy kind of shootout of a match, or it's going to be a complete walkover. There's kind of no in between with those guys. And I think that the most important thing is that Harry Godfrey, like Taha Kimura, is looking like he's going to be like a pretty good long-term solution for them at 10. Not only scoring the winning try, but also making a really important try-saving tackle as well. But yeah, it was a wild game. There was a lot of dumb mistakes from both teams across the board. So I think they're probably just going to scrub that one and start thinking about the Blues this weekend.
Yeah, what a matchup that is. And also with all the extra attached, that the Blues are 0-2. And, you talked earlier about that scoreline between the Blues and the Chiefs at Eden Park. Well, this was the scoreline that kind of most resembled what you'd expect in a competitive rugby match between two very good sides, packed with sort of star players, although obviously the Highlanders only bring the Ethan de Groot, don't bring any other All Blacks, but certainly the Blues are overloaded, aren't they? And that match in Dunedin, fantastic crowd again. The zoo at O Week, it always tends to pack out. I love the fact that they let spectators onto the field, so rather than invading the field or trespassing on the field, they were allowed on, and my young son was actually amongst them and got a couple of selfies. He was very pleased with himself. But just in terms of that game, what an effort from those young Highlanders, and being down again players at the end there. Just, the defence was magnificent. I thought the attacking intent was there as well. But let's park them and talk about the Blues. What's gone wrong with the champions?
I don't know. It's like they've all forgotten how to close a game out, which is what they were really, really good at last year. I'm scratching my head as to what's actually happened, because as well as the Highlanders played, they got themselves in a position to basically hand the game back to the Blues with about 20 minutes to go, where Daniel Leonard-Brown was carded. And just, by the way, correct call on both on the ref yellow carding him and then the TMO upgrading it to a red. I don't think they can have any complaints with that.
No.
But really it meant because of the new interpretation of the scrum laws that the Blues had a 2-man overlap in the backs. So why they weren't taking a scrum every time they took a penalty is completely
why
dominant.
They didn't do it the second time? That's the thing. After the first, surely the message came down from upstairs, Jamie, after the first one. What are you guys doing? You got 2 out wide here.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I'm so perplexed about, as to why one of the senior All Blacks that they've got on the field, which they've got like 4, or the coaching staff aren't telling them to do the most obvious high percentage play that they possibly can, because all it would have taken was a couple of passes and someone scoring under the posts for them, and they win the game. So yeah, I really don't know what happened there, just considering how the disparity between leadership experience between the two teams.
The Highlanders, though, I mean, what a confidence boost for them. Look, we had Jamie Joseph a couple of weeks ago and asked him about this, about playing the other New Zealand sides. And his answer was that all he could do was get his guys fit, get them prepared for the physical contact and the physical attrition that's going to be in these games. Where do they go from here? Because that says to me that in their mind, surely they must think now, well, there's no one that we can't have a crack at.
Well, I think that they're going to be up against that for a little bit because of the circumstance of that game. They lost 3 props. Leonard Brown's going to be suspended. I'm not sure of the injury status of the other two. I mean, Solomao is definitely going to be out with an HIA, which he failed it. So they've got a real problem there, just simply packing a scrum. So that's their first order of business, is to sort that out. But I think that just in terms of a confidence boost, you couldn't get a better one. And I think that the biggest vindication out of that game is the movement of Timothy Tavatavanawe from the wing into 12, and also giving him captaincy role, and also basically letting him play like a loose forward as well, because he was probably the most influential player all weekend, probably along with Finn Hurley, the fullback, just because of the work he did on and off the ball. And I think that if they can just sort of base their game plan around this guy who's now all of a sudden become one of the most important players in the comp, then they'll go all right. They've got Moana this weekend, which is probably pretty good for them because they can go down to the bare bones of their squad and still be confident of a win. But it's not going to be easy for them going forward because they really just can't afford any more injuries or suspensions at all, given how shallow the depth of their squad is.
Finn Hurley, isn't it great to see? It's meant to be the game for all shapes and sizes. And I know that you still play when you recover from your injury, of course. You'll still be playing. And that young man absolutely demonstrates that, hey, you don't have to be this big, bruising, hulking, 100-and-something kilo guy with a fleet of foot like that, the acceleration that he's got. I mean, he made Finlay Christie look like a pudding. I hate to say it, but I don't know what's happened to his game. He just seems to have fallen off a cliff at the moment. But just sheer pace and acceleration, movement. It's great to watch, wasn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely was. And I'm personally not that surprised about this because I went and watched their preseason game they had against Moana up here a couple of weeks before the season started. And I remember thinking, like, Moana were really targeting him the whole game, putting kicks down his throat. And he was running the back with absolute fearless intensity. And I remember thinking, like, if they can really utilize this guy the same way that the Springboks do with Curly Aronson, Cheslin Colby, there is room in New Zealand rugby for a small little pocket rocket who can fit himself through gaps, the way that Finn Hurley did. And I would say I think he's actually the smallest guy in the whole comp, and he's not even halfback. So it says a lot about, first off, the trust that the coaching staff put in him to start at fullback in a game like that against a team like that. And then secondly, his self-belief to be able to pull off an effort like that included a try that you're already thinking is going to be up for try of the year when it's all said and done.
Finally, MP then conceding over 100 points in the first 2 games. I mean, what the hell is that about?
Yeah, well, this is the issue. Like, you can talk about everything else that goes on with this team, but it's defence. That's all it is, because they're scoring really good tries. They've scored 11 in their first 2 games.
and haven't got anything to show for it.
Young player Kieran Winkler, who is one of the best exponents of try scoring in the whole competition, and he's just getting let down by the fact that they're conceding like 100 points the other way. That's all it is for those guys. All they need to do this week is practice their tackling, and Artie needs to sit down and have a really good word with them and just go, hey, look, I've won this comp before, and I did it in a team that didn't concede a try in the entire playoff series. And that was the key to us winning this thing. And we need to start having a completely different mindset around defence right now. And it's got to start on Friday's Highlanders. So we're going to try and run the ball from everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's the same as a game of football. If you don't concede a goal, you can always win a game. Start by going, okay, keep them under 20 points. We've got absolutely every chance. And for a couple of Wellington lads who've been both living up here for a long time, there's no better time for the Canes to be taking on the Blues, mate, than this weekend.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this is a very interesting game because both the teams are coming in with some kind of indifferent form behind them. And so I think what this game will do is set whoever wins on a path to the way that their season should be going.
Yeah.
With the other one still having to sit and answer some questions. So I think this is probably the most interesting game of the round, given how the teams have been tracking. And also, again, like the Highlanders, the kind of disparity in test quality players that exist on both teams.
There's an Australian team sitting at second on the points table in Super Rugby. No, it's not the Brumbies. It's not New South Wales or the Reds. It's the Western Force. Brad McKay from Rugby Pass joins us. Mate, how much of a shock and a surprise and a delight is this?
Yeah. I did not have Western Force running second and undefeated after 2 rounds on my bingo card. I'll concede that. But full credit to them. They are getting the job done. And they'll be concerned. They're conceding 40-plus points a game.
Yeah.
So there's concern. Actually, I saw a stat on the weekend. They are the first team, I think, in the history of Super Rugby to concede 40 points in consecutive games and win them both. But it goes further than that. Teams haven't conceded 40 points in multiple games in a season and won them. And they've done it in consecutive weekends.
There you go. Great stats. I tell you another one. Look, the last time that they beat the Brumbies in Canberra, baby Jesus was playing number 10, wasn't he?
He was, indeed. Yeah, they flew him in from Nazareth on a 3 game injury cover contract. Yeah, a long time ago, 2011. I think that was I don't think that was the Matt Giddo era. I think he won another one in about 2008, 2009. But that was only their 3rd win in Canberra. But the way that they were able to recover that 5-metre scrum with the ball effectively a tight head, that was the turning point, wasn't it? Because they were able to exit from there and then they just got down the field. I'm still not 100% sure how they were able to march down the field as easy as they did. And then they just went pick and drive and got over. And, 30, what were they leading? 35-28, I think the Brumbies really, and they had all the momentum. The Brumbies really should have sewn that game up, but they just couldn't close them out. And that's going to be something that they absolutely need to address and look at before they head your way and play the Chiefs this week and the Blues the following week.
Yeah, I mean, it must be a big concern for the Brumbies because, again, they're shipping a lot of points. They did against Ndrura as well. But overall...
But everyone is, mate. I mean, look at the scores on the weekend and, the losing teams have scored 24, 36, 34, 21, 42 points. So, everyone's shipping points at the moment.
Yes, defence will be part, I would say, of most coaches' pep talks this coming weekend. But look, as I said to Jamie to start the show with, it's been about entertainment. And I think, we spoke about this last week, how important it was, given the fact that the NRL doesn't start till this weekend. The AFL is similar. So rugby had a couple of weeks in Australia to actually, just say to people, hey, have a look at this competition. It's actually bloody good viewing. And it's done that.
Yeah, it's almost a throwback to the original Super 12 days where, rugby league types would go, oh, yeah, you don't play Super Rugby if you don't want to make you any tackles. It's almost a throwback to that. And look, it's 97 tries in 2 weeks across 10 games. This time last year, it was 100 tries in 12 games. So I don't think there's been any particular law variation tweak that has enabled this. It's just might be the way teams have started. And never mind who'd be a coach, who'd be a defence coach.
New South Wales, we've only seen them once, but obviously that victory over the Highlanders looks even more impressive given what the Highlanders did on the weekend.
Yeah, it definitely does. It definitely does. And there was definitely a narrative in Australia last week. Yeah, but it's the Highlanders. They be lucky. They won't play finals this year. Like, what have they done the last couple of years? They then go and shut out the Blues and shut them out pretty effectively, realistically, at home. So, yes, that's actually done the Waratahs a big favour. They've who have they got the Drua this week, haven't they? So, we'll find out more about how Dan McKellar's got that team humming. Yeah, this coming week certainly. It's a big game. Like they've actually got a couple of big games over the next few weeks. They've got the Force the following week. I think they play Queensland in the next sort of week or two after that potentially as well. So, yeah, we're starting to learn more about teams and. the Waratahs, they looked impressive last week. There was still plenty they need to work on, obviously, but they looked really good, and backing it up is going to be the challenge from here.
The Reds, we get a first look at them. Again, a score that could be a lopsided netball game. It could be a basketball. It could be a Six Nations game between Italy and France. So take that, Northern Hemisphere. But, what can we read into that from the Reds?
They got the job done. They beat a team that they were expected to beat well. Again, they'd be annoyed about the 36 part of the scorecard. No doubt about that. But they looked sharp at times. There was a period there through that first half where they conceded 3 yellow cards in 21 minutes or something like that. So that's absolutely going to be an issue. The Force had the same problem. They had 4 yellow cards in a game. That's something that needs to be addressed as well. So look, I said to you 2 weeks ago, the Queensland are the favourites from the Australian side of things, and I've seen nothing to change my mind on that. But yes, we need to certainly see teams starting to tighten up in defence to complement the way they want to attack, because it's clear that everyone certainly wants to throw the ball around. Everyone's wanting to play with width. Everyone's wanting to exploit the outside channels. And it's great to watch, but at some point, teams are going to have to start making tackles out there as well.
Brett, just in terms of how Australia's looking at the competition, because even after a couple of weeks over the last couple of years, you'd straight away get a feeling that, look, there's 3 or 4 New Zealand sides that are going to make the finals playoffs. Yet at the moment, there's the Chiefs way above everyone else. The Blues are at the bottom of the table. Go figure that. I mean, 0-2, no one was picking that. But also, the Crusaders have been kind of convincing and then get smacked like that. The Hurricanes can't say that they've been convincing. I mean, they got out of jail against the Drua. So, is the feeling that, hey, it actually might have even evened up more than it did after last year?
Yeah, I think it definitely is, mate. And you only look at the middle part of the table. The Reds are third on 5 points. The Crusaders are 8th on 4 points. All those teams in between have all got 1 point. So there's 6 teams of won one, lost one.
Yeah.
And there's some pretty decent teams in that grouping as well. So it's a really interesting competition. And I think it's probably changed a few, or if not changed, it's probably affected. It's probably given cause for second thought about a few preseason predictions, I think, because the Chiefs, for example, I'm still not 100% sure how they've got where they are, because they're largely the same squad from last year. My expectation was that they would be about where they were last year and, be there or thereabouts, but maybe not quite challenging. Well, they're certainly up there challenging at the moment.
They're dominant. They're dominant.
Yeah, absolutely. They were absolutely dominant, and they blew the Crusaders away. The Crusaders, now we're thinking, was week 1 the anomaly, or was last week?
Yeah.
It was week 2 the anomaly. I'm not sure there. The Hurricanes looked like they might have taken a couple of steps back. The Highlanders have maybe gone a step or two forward. And then on our side of the equation, the Force have definitely taken steps forward. The Brumbies would have been really thrilled after winning in Fiji, but now they've sort of undone that good work, losing at home. Queensland looked all right in one outing. New South Wales looked all right in one outing as well. So this weekend coming, after 3 rounds, the question there might be, how many undefeated teams do we still have? How many winless teams do we still have? And it might be 8 or 9 teams in that middle pack suddenly. And, I think the fact that if you're coming out of a weekend with 3 out of 5 tips right, it's probably actually not a bad thing for the competition, because it's hard to pick winners at the moment.
Yeah, and for everyone playing fantasy rugby as well.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck to you.
But what it's doing, though, is that, it's giving us what we needed. Right at the start, I said, it was about entertainment in the first couple of weeks. It's got narratives, it's got storylines, it's got a bit of intrigue, it's had some fantastic finishes, it's had 2 great rounds so far. So, whoever was sitting there at the beginning of the season and wondering whether Super Rugby would kick off and take off, yes, it has.
Yeah, you're right. It definitely has. It's got some, and it's done that because of the results, because of the unpredictability about it. It's done that because the Highlanders have beaten the Blues. It's done that because the Force have won in Canberra for the first time in a decade plus. So, suddenly we've got these extra storylines that we didn't see coming 2 weeks ago. And that makes all the difference in a competition starting up. So, if we can get to a point in round 5, 6, 7 where we're still only getting 3 out of 5 in our tips, I reckon the competition's actually in a pretty good spot.
DSPN.
Time for our weekly rankings, Super Rugby rankings after round 2. And with the upsets and unpredictability that we saw, the rankings could easily be the Chiefs at 1, then a huge gap down to whoever is at second, MP at 11, and I think the rest just packed in a jumble somewhere in between. For the purposes, though, of this, I will put them in an order which I agree might look a little weird, but it is only 2 weeks in, and also only based on the results of games played. Not how strong a particular squad looks on paper or how they should be tracking, but only on what has in fact been happening. Last week's positions in brackets. So, number 1, without a doubt, by a clear margin, the Chiefs. They were number 1 last week. They're 2-0, and they look unstoppable at the moment. The Force, I've put it 2, up 8 places, simply because they're the only other team that's 2-0. They were 10th ranked last week. Well, that's by me. I didn't think they were that impressive against MP, and they conceded another hatful of points against the Brumbies, but they have won both games. Third, the Canes, Hurricanes, currently look the best of the rest in my book. They were 4th last week. They're 1-1. Fourth, New South Wales, but only because they did beat the Highlanders. New South Wales have only played the 1 game. Highlanders 5th. That was a statement win for this young side. The confidence they will gain from that. And who now can't they beat in the competition? They were 8th last week. They're 1-1. 6th spot, the Reds. In a game of zero defence, they did score 8 tries. That's the first time that we have seen them all comp. They were 7th last week. They're 1-0. 7th, the Brumbies. They beat the Drua and then they lost to the Force. That was the first time that the Force had won in Canberra in 13 years. They were 6th last week. They're 1-1. 8th, the Crusaders, smashed by the Chiefs. But they are 1-1 and they've dropped from 3rd last week. 9th. Who picked the Blues to be 0-2? Apart from absolutely no one. What a shocker of a start for them. I had them at 2 last week, even though they'd lost to the Chiefs. At 10th, Drua, also 0-2, but 2 games that they could have easily won. 11th, MP, 100 points conceded in 2 games, and that's got to be a real concern. They were bottom of the bunch last week. They're 0-2. They won 3 games last year. Man, it looks as though it's going to be a real struggle to even win that many this year. Good luck to them. Those are my rankings. Super Rugby after round number 2. Round 3 of the Six Nations concluded this morning New Zealand time with France doing a number on Italy. It was a basketball score and a lopsided one at that. Something like 73-24, 11 tries. Match of the round had to be England, just squeaking past Scotland. And Ireland doing enough to beat Wales. Our man from the Times Online, rugbypass.com is Chris Jones, who joins us again. Thank you, Chris.
Good to be with you. Yes, something very strange happened earlier today. Super Pacific Rugby broke out in the Six Nations, where somebody had passed Italy the defence book that you all use down there, the one where you don't actually tackle anybody.
Doesn't have a lot of
11
pages.
tries followed.
That's it, yeah. Yeah, look, over the weekend, 75 points on average every game of Super Rugby and over 10 tries scored. So, as I've been saying, about as much defence as the NBA All-Star game. But let's go right back to the beginning. And Ireland against Wales. Look, a close scoreline. What do we read into that game and the performance of Ireland?
Ireland should be concerned because they didn't play particularly well. At 18 all, Wales looked like they had momentum, and then we had a situation within the game which was really important where Gary Ringrose gets sent off for an out-of-control head contact tackle, straight red. It had to be a straight red, but no, what do we get? A referral, and it's deemed a 20-minute one. Who comes on? Bundy Aki, who then proceeds to wrestle every single Welsh player and a few of the crowd into submission, and they get the win that they allow them to win their triple crown and puts them on course still for the Grand Slam. But this is not an Ireland team firing on all cylinders. Is it because Andy Farrell's not there? I'm not so sure about that. I just think that they're being worked out by teams who pick a couple of back row forwards to scavenge, slow down their ball. If you could somehow get Gibson Park off the pitch, I think they would be in real trouble. He's been absolutely fantastic for them and has given them whatever they needed in terms of, at various points, some impetus. It's all down to him. If he was off the pitch, I think they would be even more suspect going into this game against France, which, of course, is the next round of the Six Nations and will decide the title.
Just that red card. So this is the first time that we've seen it. This is a brand new rule, not a new rule, but a Southern Hemisphere rule that that they have adopted. Has it worked, and was it the right thing to do?
This is the first one. And, we've had lots of referral, yellow card referral to the bunker. Does it get upgraded? But this, when you saw the slow motion, was just as bad as you saw it in live. He comes flying in, makes head contact with the Welsh player. It's a red. But they then deemed it a red under the new World Rugby system.
Guidelines,
and so they only get 20 minutes because, of course, we want to make this game a spectacle. The fact is, he should have been off the pitch. Ireland should have been down to 14. And that would have made an even better finish to what was... Wales have lost 15 matches in a row. Look, there's nothing to wave the flags about, but there was some pride there, some way of playing that actually looked like Welsh rugby. And boy, I wonder what Warren Gatland thought about that.
Well, how's this for a stat? That Wales have lost 15 games in a row. That's as many as Richie McCaw did in his whole 148 Test career for the All Blacks. Some stat, isn't it?
Yeah, he wasn't playing for Wales, so that he got away with it. Look, that is a fantastic... Of course, it's a fantastic... He played during a wonderful era of All Black rugby. This has been an absolutely pitiful era for Welsh rugby, quite honestly. And the way they were playing wasn't good either. And that's what got the crowd really against Gatland, I think, is the style of rugby. It wasn't how some of the Welsh regions were trying to play. And we saw, that he made this... Sherrod, the guy who doesn't want the job, who's come over from Cardiff just to finish the Six Nations, he picked players that Gatland didn't pick, which are basically some guys playing very good rugby for Gloucester. And you know what? Wales played well, and it was simple as that. And I think, when Warren looks back on it, I think some of the selections he made at the start of this campaign really did hurt him.
England versus Scotland. Scotland ruined the fact that they scored 3 tries, couldn't convert any of them, and that last-minute miss meant that they ended up losing the match by 1 miserable point. Do England just take the win from that game, and is that all they can take from it?
Well, when you consider that England kicked the ball 36 times, it was actually amazing at some point. It did stay in a few people's hands. But, the end of the match, involving a French referee, very new to all of this, he made, much to Finn Russell's anger, moved 2 yards further away from the post and nearer the touchline, saying that's where the ball went down. Well, if you look at the actual where it was scored, it's where Finn would have taken the kick from, and it was a really poor decision by the referee. It was even worse decision by the so-called man of the match, Duan van der Merwe, that he didn't at all try to run at the posts.
Yeah, I thought that at the time.
He had to come off his left foot, Marty. He had to come off his left foot and get as close. He's 6'5". Even if there's cover coming across, he's going to knock them out of the way. And that was a really poor decision by him, but not as bad as some of the decisions by the referee.
Let's look at France then. And again, what do we read into that apart from the fact that they were absolutely magnificent? They put a score on that the All Blacks, have done many times against Italy. And it does set it up, as you say, very nicely for what will be the decider in a couple of weeks' time.
The question before we get to France is, what on earth happened to Italy? This time last year, they had a penalty to beat France, and it came back off the post from Garbisi. Today, they scored 3 really good tries, and the defence went AWOL. It was a very strange performance. Look, against England, France couldn't hold on to the ball. They held on to the ball today, and some of the shape of the attack was very good, with Ramos playing at 10, and with this young guy Barre at the back. Their back 3 is basically 22 and under. There's a lot of young talent in this French side, and they got the forward impetus from the pack to allow them to weave the magical running lines that we know they can. And Ireland will be looking at thinking we're going to have to kill the ball for as long as possible, because France coming to Dublin now with that sort of impetus, with Dupont playing really well after a sort of an average start, should really worry them. And you can't write France going off to Dublin. It'll be very difficult, obviously, because Ireland have a great record there. But honestly, this French side playing like that, everybody has to think that they can reach a level that very few can match.
So they are the form team going into this match, but it was always going to be the final, wasn't it? I don't know who does the scheduling, but you know that the 2 best teams, why don't they coordinate it so that they actually meet in the last round? How hard is it?
Well, you often think that there must be an English bias in this because, of course, the last game for England is Wales away, which would have been a fantastic finale if England were going for the championship. And there is a scenario in which they may well be. If France managed to win, then Ireland finished going away to Italy, France home to Scotland, England go down to Wales, that could be a weekend in which, the teams three of them could be going for the title. But, the money would still be on Ireland to be the strongest of those contenders. But you do wonder about the way these things have worked out. It must be a very special computer. That's all I can say.
The DSPN. The Type 5.
That's 5 separate sporting topics, Lachlan, roughly 90 seconds on each. And when the bell reminds us, on to the next topic we go. We're not talking any of the rugby because the rest of the podcast is all about that. Let's talk about Joseph Parker. He's not going to get a fight against Usyk anytime soon. Liverpool win at Man City. Title race over with Arsenal losing at home to West Ham. Supercars opening round and Cam Waters 3 from 3 pole positions as well. AFC Knicks derby on Saturday. We both went to that. And the Black Caps tonight are going to beat Bangladesh and make the Champions Trophy semis. Let's kick it with the cricket. I'm so on this train. Black Caps are going to do what the White Ferns did last year. It's not the World Championship, but this is the next big one-day tournament. And we're the best team in it next to India and Australia.
And South Africa, who were very good against Afghanistan.
I know, but as Rahul pointed out right at the beginning of the tournament, he picked those 4 teams, us amongst it, to make the semi-finals. We win tonight, we're in the semi-finals.
Well, yes, and we're lucky that our toughest opponent's already out of the way and beaten. So from that perspective, win tonight, we're through. It's all good.
Australia on the weekend, though, isn't this just so typical of them? They leave half their team behind. England smacked 350-odd runs. And they still win. They've just got a factory of players, haven't they?
Unlike New Zealand, they have pretty much 3 separate teams for the 3 different formats. We don't. We have bits and bobs of players.
Well, it's their national sport is cricket. People forget that. That's actually the national game.
I don't think anyone forgets that. That's the national sport.
Well, if you ask most people, what's Australia's national game?
Cricket.
Most people would say probably AFL, wouldn't they?
Well, that can't be a national game if you're the only nation that plays it. But no. I think many people would.
Well,
it's a summer sport, so obviously
Aussies play cricket like our kids play rugby. They're born with a cricket bat and a ball in their hands, aren't they?
Yeah, it's their sport. It's what they do.
But the Black Caps are going to win tonight. No question about it.
Yeah, but then they'll get to the semi-finals and
here we go.
They'll probably play one of it doesn't matter, and they'll lose to South Africa or Australia.
When it gets to the semi-finals, what happens to South Africa?
Well, hold up. At the T20 World Cup last year, they got to the final.
And guess what they did?
Well, they lost the final. But no. But you said when they get to the semis.
Well,
so they can get to a final.
When it comes to cricket, white ball cricket, when it comes to the crunch, South Africa bottle it. That's what we know. Supercars opening round. Now, I only watched yesterday. I didn't watch.
Oh, you didn't see the second race?
I didn't see the second.
That was the pick of the bunch.
Was it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yesterday was a little bit more of a precision by comparison.
Well, the last 10 laps or something when it started raining and all the cars were doing this was excellent.
That second race, so Cam Waters winning all 3 is incredible, but he's clearly got the fastest car in the field to start this year at the very least. That second race, so Cam Waters is second behind Brock Feeney, does a bit of they're rubbing paint against each other the whole last
love
few laps.
Kisses, they call it. I love that.
Yeah, love bumps. And then Cam Waters does a bit of a love taps, bump and run on the last corner and a bit of a dodgy move. And then it looks like Brock Feeney's going to get him and hold on to top spot. And then just as they're approaching the finish line, Cam Waters just gets ahead of him. It's unreal.
So was it a bit of a slipstream or something, was it?
No, they were side by side.
Oh, okay.
It was strange. Okay. I can't think of anything to compare it to be honest, but it's like a 100-metre sprint in the Olympics, and there's a guy winning it. Mm-hmm. And then out of nowhere, a dude just kind of has a little bit of extra gas in the last 20, 30 metres.
So, as you say, the car was perfectly tuned. 3 poles, 3 number ones.
Well, Tickford
doesn't happen that often.
Yeah, Tickford have sort of been on the outskirts, if you will, of the competition bubble for a little while, because Mark Woodham won the championship in 2015. Since then, they haven't really been in that vicinity of the teams to beat as much as, say, Triple Eight or Penske a couple of years ago. But no, that car is clearly the fastest and the one to beat.
Best way to start supercars, isn't it?
You know what's really weird, though? Just quickly, Friday night was the first race.
Yeah.
They don't do that. Supercars.
No, it's under lights, though, because it's Sydney.
No. But Friday night, they never have a Friday night race.
They normally have two
not unless it's like a smaller sprint race, maybe. But it's always Saturday and Sundays. So I was completely blindsided Saturday morning when I found out
brilliant thing to do yesterday afternoon. So the whole weekend watching all kinds of sport, of course, and then turn on. Oh, that's right, supercars, and have a race right. Saturday afternoon, both of us. were amongst the 27,009, don't forget the 9 spectators, at Go Media Mount Smart Stadium in Auckland. That's the biggest crowd for a domestic football match, but it keeps getting broken every time they play, doesn't it? Although I'm pretty sure that, no, actually, playoff games in Wellington, I think the Phoenix got over 30,000 for some of those playoff games when Ricky Herbert was in charge. But regardless of, the point is that it was another cracking day's entertainment out there. 5 o'clock, beautiful sunny afternoon. And what they put on out there is just... Look, there are freebies from the moment you walk in. They're handing out all kinds of stuff, right? The kids get prizes. The kids can play bouncy castles. There's a massive slide. There's the DJs playing music. They did a flyover with 4 warbirds, a quadruple flyover. So they went round and came back and did it again. And then, out when came all the just... And then the game starts. And Auckland FC dicked them 6-1. It is actually a fantastic afternoon's entertainment. I can see why it is working every time I go there.
There's again, it helps that the team is winning. If Auckland FC were getting smacked up every single week, then these crowds wouldn't be happening.
True.
But there's a theatre to football crowds or football games, and the crowds created. It's the atmosphere of singing and chanting and pointing and pulling the finger at the other team.
That's it.
It's this overall theatre that makes it really fun to be part of, which rugby crowds don't really have. Maybe English cricket crowds do more so than others with the Barmy Army, but. So that's what makes it quite fun from a family spectator perspective, and there's a lot of families go. It's absolutely the most
big
family
kid time, mate.
It's the most family friendly thing. That
I haven't seen
Auckland
that
sport
many
has
kids
to
at a
offer.
sports crowd. The Breakers get a lot of kids along as well, but this is kind of the Breakers times 4 or 5.
Out of what is the Warriors' record at that ground? Because I'm pretty sure, and I could be wrong, so don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure it was 26,000 something against the Knights in that playoff game a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
This was 27.
I thought it was the Roosters a few years ago at a playoff game, actually. I thought that was that.
What, at Mount Smart?
Yeah, I thought it was 30,000. But look, I
think,
it was announced as a record crowd on the weekend.
But my point being is that I need to run some numbers, but that could be the record for Mount Smart, at least if you were to compare Auckland FC and the Warriors. So, I don't know. Warriors have a little bit of work to do.
If you had said, 10 years ago that a game of club soccer in New Zealand, in Auckland, was going to get those kind of crowds, people would have laughed at you. World's changing, people.
Maybe
they're doing it right
Maybe
out
when
there.
the Blues are at the depths of
Doing it
despair,
right.
yeah.
Speaking of things, round ball football, Liverpool at Man City, 2-0, comfortable. Newcastle beating Forest today.
That doesn't matter. No, we only care about Liverpool today.
With Arsenal losing at home to West Ham, which is what they have done over the last 2 or 3 Premier League seasons. They've huffed and puffed, they've talked it up, they've threatened, and then when it comes to the moment where they played before Liverpool, home to West Ham, that's a gimme 3 points. You've got to shut the door on that, close the gap to 2 points and put the pressure back on. They bottle it. Title race is over.
Taking my bias out of the equation
Title race is
here,
over.
in Arsenal's defence, they have a lot of injuries.
Oh, stop
No,
it,
no, hold on. No.
Please.
No, hold up.
Tell the division that cares.
No. Shush.
Tell the league that cares.
No, shush. They have no one up front in their defence. However, that doesn't matter. Every year, everyone deals with injuries.
Right.
Everyone laughed at Liverpool the year after they won the Premier League and lost their entire defence, and everyone said, you're the worst defending champions ever, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
we didn't
everyone
have
gets
our defence,
injuries.
but it doesn't matter. But they are missing a few players. In saying that, no, you're right. They've done this for 3 years. They did it a lot last season when they were top of the table, drew a couple of games, fell away. And then when they were about 4 or 5 points behind both Liverpool and City, maybe not that many, they were beating everyone 4-5-6-0. And then it got to a point one weekend, and I've referenced this many times, where they had a chance to go top because I think Liverpool and City both dropped points. And what happened? They lost at home to Villa or something.
2-0.
So
That's them.
they've done this for 2 or 3 years
that's
now.
right.
In saying that, I don't think they were ever going to catch Liverpool regardless of this weekend.
No. Liverpool
anyway.
got it. Liverpool will equal Man United 20 titles, and I reckon you'll confirm it next month.
Where
20 titles.
No, where are you guys on the table?
A fighting, battling draw away at Everton after
15?
being 2-0 down.
15?
Yeah. Well, the table
30
doesn't lie.
points, is it?
Table doesn't lie. The table is where you are, and we're rubbish, and that's where we are. Finally, this is really disappointing. Joe Parker did exactly what he had to do in Saudi Arabia, beats his opponent so comfortably, 2 rounds, and then Usyk comes out and says, oh no, I'm fighting Dubois next. Does it not raise eyebrows about this whole... I think it's a sham. I really do. Was Dubois sick? Give him the benefit of the doubt. It all looks very convenient, though, doesn't it?
Well, what a shock that this kind of thing happens in boxing.
Yeah. Sad for Joseph because he's done everything right. He deserves a shot. Is he going to get one?
Well, by the sounds of it, probably not, unless I don't know, Dubois beats Usyk, and then Dubois is the man to beat, and Parker still is the next cab off the ranks. But look, boxing is this real showman sport, obviously like the UFC, so something like this going on doesn't really surprise.
So disappointing for Joseph.
To be fair, again, this sort of made this point a little bit with us, but to be fair, to kind of put Dubois glasses on, he has been touted as the next sort of contender for a little while.
Then.
No, I know. The thing is, I think he probably would if they fought. So it's not as if Joseph Parker's at his absolute peak and is in, I think, the same vicinity as those other two fighters. I think there's a bit of a gap. Again, I'm not the biggest boxing
put
expert.
it on the line.
My point is... Yeah,
the point is he got sick.
I don't like. It's a shame. You know, it's wonderful Joe's got him back to this point, but I don't know. It's as expected that it's Usyk and Dubois, the two guys.
Feels dodgy, didn't it? That whole thing felt dodgy. That's our podcasting show for today. Again, if you're liking what you're listening and what you're seeing, then a small favour, if you will. Can you please hit like, share, subscribe, follow? Tell a friend about it. We are a fledgling podcast and show, the DSPN, and we need you. And if you are participating, well, just click that subscribe button. That would help enormously. Thank you so much if you already have. Again, tell a friend if you like. We're doing this every single day, putting out a show every afternoon. The DSPN.
This is the DSPN.